Good morning. We begin with an old song, Vine and Fig Tree. And every one neath a vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. You'll be hearing Christopher sing it, and you'll be hearing me sing it, and join in as you're so moved.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid.
And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And everyone neath the vine and fig tree shall live in peace and unafraid. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. And into plowshares turn their swords. Nations shall learn war no more. Would that it would be someday. Welcome to online worship from the parish house of our Old Ship Church. I'm Reverend Ken Reed Brown, and together sharing the service with our music director, Christopher Nicholson Mann. Welcome. It's good to be together again at a distance, but together. All welcome. A couple of reminders as usual. First, first and second, two things on our oldshipchurch.org website. Ways to help. If you're looking for ways to help, to make donations of any kind to food pantries, shelters, health services for the underserved, you can find that on our website. And you can find a way to support Old Ship as well with your gift. We can't literally pass the plate, but just as an old-fashioned in-person services, the gifts we give each week support our ministries, from keeping the lights on to reaching out to help others. I thank you in advance. And once again, welcome. Welcome. Thank you, Christopher. Poor wayfaring stranger. Though at a distance, we have once again gathered for worship. May our time together bring comfort to those who need comfort, bring inspiration to those who need inspiration, bring all-embracing love, God's other name, bring all-embracing love to everyone. Walt Whitman wrote 165 years ago, "I will not have a single person slighted or left away. I will not have a single person slighted or left away." In the spirit of these words, I will light the flaming chalice of our Unitarian Universalist faith, which calls us in our first principle to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We will not have a single person slighted or left away. Be the change. Be the change. Thank you, Christopher. A brief story from many years ago, in fact, centuries ago. True story. In 1787, delegates from all the colonies, all the American colonies, met in Philadelphia to design a new constitution. The Articles of Confederation, formed just after the Revolution a number of years earlier, were not working so well. In fact, pretty much everyone thought they needed to be changed, and some thought they should just start from the beginning, start from scratch. And that's what ended up happening in this Constitutional Convention. The gathering of the Constitutional Convention began right about this time of year, 233 years ago, and it extended all the way through the summer till September. No doubt, in fact, by reports, clearly a hot and humid summer in Philadelphia, as summers in Philadelphia can be, with, of course, no air conditioning. But they kept at it. They got the work done, imperfectly, of course, since they were human beings. Quite a bit more than imperfectly when it came to the issue of slavery. Quite a bit more than imperfectly when it came to the role and place of women in this new thing called the United States. But they got the work done. Well, shortly after the convention adjourned, so the story goes, Ben Franklin was asked by someone, might have been a woman, we're told, since women, of course, had not been inside part of the deliberations. She asked, "What sort of government would we have, Mr. Franklin? Monarchy or republic?" Many of you have probably heard his response. Franklin is said to have replied, "A republic, if we can keep it." If we can keep it. Well, we have kept this republic, a form of democracy after all, however imperfect it remains. We've kept it for 233 years. Can we keep it still? Here ends the story of 1787, but not the story of our republic. Listen to the people, traditional American tune.
From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wild Pacific shore, we're marching for democracy, equality, and war. Free speech to us is sacred, our laws protect us all. Come join the call for freedom, build bridges, not a wall. Listen to the people, hear our voices roar. Our rights will not be trampled by the rich who just want more. Hear the mighty sound of building, it's our planet raise of us. Defend our air and water, make Congress work for us. From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wild Pacific shore, we're singing for democracy, equality, and war. Free speech to us is sacred, our laws protect us all. Come join the call for freedom, build a bridge and not a wall. Listen to the people, hear our voices roar. Our rights will not be trampled by the rich who just want more. Hear the mighty sound a growing, our movements on the rise. We'll defend our right to speak out, fight corruption and the lies. From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wild Pacific shore, we're singing for democracy, equality, and war. Free speech to us is sacred, our laws protect us all. Come join the call for freedom, build bridges, not a wall. Come join the call for freedom, build bridges, not a wall.
Words by John Batinas. Is that how you say it, Christopher? Yeah. But I don't know about the rest of you. I kept hearing Wabash Cannonball in my brain. But listen to the people, a wonderful recasting for these times, as for many times. We arrive at our time of sharing joys and sorrows and concerns and lighting candles for each. Several of you have asked me to light candles this morning. From Pat Bianco, to begin with, a candle for her brother Joe. We've heard Pat talk about Joe a number of times. He lives in Florida. He's in the last stages of Alzheimer's and has hospice care. No one can see him because of the virus, no family. But he is, as Pat writes, beyond. We light a candle for Pat's brother Joe. Daveline Cooper asks for a candle of concern for her friend Linda. Linda was diagnosed with COVID-19 on Friday. She's recovering at her home in Illinois, but being carefully monitored since she has several other serious health issues. We send healing prayers to Linda, and Daveline, you are in our hearts too. Derek Wadman, always a champion of justice among us. He asks that we light a candle to mark the 72nd anniversary of the Nakba. As the Jewish Voice for Peace Bulletin described it, as Derek shared, the Nakba was the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their homes at the hands of Zionist militias. So we light this candle for justice, for Palestinians, and for many other displaced peoples, Rohingya and others, that the Uyghurs, that Derek also brings to our attention. This candle for universal justice around the planet. Betty Potter asked for a candle of joy. Candle of joy for her daughter Becky's excellent results from her treatment for lymphoma. No sign of it at this point. There will be another 6 weeks of treatment, Betty says, but she reports that all their family is overjoyed with the results thus far. We share that joy, Betty, for Becky and for all your family. And these final candles are lit for all the joys, sorrows, and concerns deeply felt among us, though they've been unexpressed in words. We hold them as we hold one another in our hearts. May we pause now in meditation and prayer, and then gather in silence. Pause, slow down. Breathe into this moment. Become more fully awake to this moment that we share in spirit. Just present. Present to the room around us. Present to whatever sights and sounds we may be aware of outside our windows. Present to any companions nearby, whether human, canine, feline, or otherwise. Present as we hold dear ones in our hearts, even though at a distance. Present to our own breathing, just present. And from this presence in the moment, our heart's yearnings arise, prayers to the God of our hearts, God of blessings. As every week during these days, prayers for all in need of help and healing for whatever reason, for the ill and the hungry, for those facing financial hardship, those without homes, those in refugee camps, those who've already been marginalized, who are suffering all the more during these days. All this along with prayers of gratitude for all the helpers and healers, gratitude for all those who lead us with knowledge and with wisdom and with compassion. We pause in silent communion wherever we are, whomever we are, whatever our circumstances. We pause in silence. theme this morning, our themes have to do with justice and democracy, and in the midst of the current life that we're living, and always in our nation, in the world. And so these ancient words from the prophet Isaiah, in that spirit, you see the seeking of justice has been ongoing for centuries, for millennia, because injustice has sadly too often been present. Isaiah, is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of injustice, to undo the thongs of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, and to break every yoke. Is it not to share the bread, to share your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into your house? Then shall your light break forth like dawn, and your healing shall spring up quickly. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, you shall be like a watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. May it be so. Here ends the reading. Now we listen to Hold Fast the Dreams. Andre Thomas, the music. Langston Hughes, one of America's great poets, offered the words.
Fast to dreams, hold fast to dreams, to dreams. Hold fast to dreams. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams. For if dreams die, life's a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Fast to dreams, hold fast to dreams, to dreams. Hold fast to Foreign dreams go. Foreign dreams go. Life is barren, life is a barren field, frosted with snow. Fast to dreams, hold fast to dreams, to dreams. Hold fast to
The fifth of our 7 Unitarian Universalist principles affirms the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. How is it that this is one of the principles of a religious community? Isn't democracy about politics rather than religion? Aren't we meant to keep them separate somehow? Well, democracy is, of course, about politics, but if your religion also affirms, as ours does in 2 other principles, the first and second ones, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, well, if those 2 are your principles, then the democratic process is the natural political dimension in which these spiritual and moral imperatives can be and must be manifest and realized as best we can. Imperatives which, indeed, we of course find in many religious traditions. From the Hebrew prophets, we heard Isaiah earlier calling for justice, to Jesus' affirmation that we're all children of God, to Muslims, particularly during this time of Ramadan, encouraging everyone to share with those who have less, to Hindus, declaring that the divinity resides within each person. Well, Ben Franklin, as we heard earlier, said that the Constitutional Convention had created a republic, a form of democracy, after all, but that we had work to do to keep it. The work of democracy. Our work over 2 centuries later, political work with ethical and spiritual foundations, our work these days is cut out more than ever, cut out for us this year in the midst of many threats to our democratic process, all in the midst of a centuries-long struggle for things like full voting rights, full equality under the law, justice, equal justice for all citizens, no matter color of their skin, their ethnic background, gender, and so on. Well, what's to be the guide in this work, this spiritual work on behalf of keeping the republic, of democracy? Well, there are many guides. Poets are among them. Here's what perhaps the greatest poet of American democracy had to say. You are gleaning that I've been reading Walt Whitman again, because here he is again, writing in his introduction to the 1855 first edition of Leaves of Grass. Here are a few sentences. He wrote, "The American poets are to enclose old and new, for America is the race of races. Of them, a bard is to be commensurate with a people. To him," meaning the poet, "the other continents arrive as contributions." A little later, he wrote this, a little later on in the same introduction. He wrote, "Of all nations, the United States, with veins full of poetical stuff, most need poets, and will doubtless have the greatest and use them the greatest. Their presidents shall not be their common referee so much as their poets shall." Well, we'd like our presidents to be referees too, maybe even sometimes poets. But as for poets, Whitman was talking about his own aspiring poetical self with typical bravado, but poets do matter. Not just Whitman, but many others, and other poets, American poets, have since arrived in similar spirits. We heard words embedded in one of the songs that Christopher sang from Langston Hughes, African-American poet of the early and mid-20th century, in another poem from the one that was quoted, so to speak, in the song. His poem, "Let America Be America," he cataloged in the poem all those for whom the so-called American dream have been just that, a dream, a wisp. He wrote, "I am the poor white, fooled and pushed apart. I am the Negro bearing slavery's scars. I am the red man driven from the land. I am the immigrant clutching the hope I seek and finding only the same old stupid plan of dog eat dog of mighty, crush the weak." He went on in that line, but he was able to end this great American poem, "Let America Be America," with these words, "I say it plain, America never was America to me, and yet I swear this oath, America will be. Out of the rack and ruin of our gangster death, the rape and rot of graft and stealth and lies, we the people must redeem the land, the mines, the plants, the rivers, the mountains and the endless plain, all the stretch of these great green states, and make America again. I invite you to read the whole poem sometime. Let America Be America is the title. In our own time, Richard Blanco, son of Cuban immigrants and well aware of injustice and inequality as a gay Cuban American, nevertheless ended his 2013 inaugural poem with these words of hope for our nation, for our people. He wrote, "We head home, always under one sky, our sky, and always one moon like a silent drum tapping on every rooftop and every window of one country, all of us, facing the stars, hope, a new constellation, waiting for us to map it, waiting for us to name it together." My third poet this morning, actually my fourth if we include Whitman, Alice Walker, another referee and guide for these times, African-American writer and poet. Alice Walker, from her poem, Patriot. If you want to show your love for America, love Americans. Smile when you see one flower like his turban, rose pink. Rejoice at the eagle feather in a grandfather's braid. If a sister bus rider's hair is especially nappy, a miracle in itself, praise it. How can there be homeless in a land so crammed with houses? Love your country by loving Americans. Love Americans. Salute the soul and the body of who we spectacularly and sometimes pitifully are. Love us. We are the flag. Well, this call, as we might put it, call from all these poets and others, is for all of us to be, if you will, poets of democracy, poets of a true patriotism, if not poets of rhymed or metrical words, then surely poets of our own halting words from the heart and our own imperfect deeds from the heart, from our voice to our votes, from our support to those who live, support of those who live on the margins, to our support of candidates who seek, Langston Hughes' words, to make America again. The America of genuine equality, of justice and compassion, an America of kindness under one sky, to use Richard Blanco's words. I'll say it again, as I said at the outset, this is not just a political task, though it is that, but it's our task, each in our own way, as a prophetic, spiritual, religious people. Our task during this time of pandemic, when social, economic, and racial inequities have been laid bare more than ever. Our worthy, essential task now, in whatever ways we can be part of this task now and always. So may it be. We're going to sing again, and by we, I mean not just Christopher and me, but you too. You know this song, at least you know the chorus, by another poet, Woody Guthrie. This land is your land. And I'm going to be singing all the verses, not just the ones we may have learned in elementary school, but some verses that some may have considered subversive, but I think just. Do sing along if you like. You know the chorus, and if you don't, you'll learn it. There are a lot of verses, so I'll sing 2 verses in between each chorus, but we'll start with the chorus. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw below me the golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I've roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. And all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. Here comes the chorus. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving and the dust clouds rolling, as the fog was lifting, a voice was chanting. This land was made for you and me. Well, here's one of those different, wonderful verses. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on the sign it said, no trespassing. But on the other side, it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. And here are the last two verses, not subversive at all, invitations to justice. In the square of the city, in the shadow of the steeple, by the relief office, I see my people. As they stood there hungry, I stood there asking, is this land made for you and me? Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back, 'cause this land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. And by you and me, knowing Woody, we surely knew that he meant, as we must mean, everyone, of every color and gender expression, every background, from every land, including first and most assuredly the native peoples of this land. This land was made for all of us. May it truly become that land. Be well, be safe. May we take care of each other, take care of everyone as best we can. May it always be so. Blessed be. Amen. We extinguish these flames, but not the love with which they were lit, not the faith with which they were lit. Love and faith go with us as we carry them in our hearts. Go in peace.